In this video, we're gonna cover the dreaded rip cut. Now, radial arm saws have this undeserved reputation for being extremely dangerous to rip on, and you can check my back catalog. I've tried to make this thing give kickbacks and it won't. I actually think it's safer to rip on a radial arm saw than it is on a table saw, especially if you, well, only if you're doing it correctly. So let's get into that now. So just so you know, cross cut is when you cut across the grain, rip cut is when you cut along the grain.
Okay.
So that we know. So the setup, I do still tend to rip more on my table saw than I do the radial arm saw, even if it's safer, because setting this up to do a rip is a lot more complicated than it is to set up for the table saw. So the table saw is just quicker. All right, so safe the saw, make sure there's no power going to it. All right, you can stand on that side. So pull the carriage forward past the rip fence. All right, now there's a lever up here on this side. This one here, you're gonna pull it forward to unlock, and you're gonna rotate the whole thing so the blade is facing this way. So this whole assembly will rotate. Yep.
So the blade is facing this way?
Yes.
So it's parallel with the table?
Yep, it'll pop into a detent and then just lock it down in place.
I was being extra safe.
Yep. Now, you can do rips with the blade facing out this way. That's called an out rip. Or you can do it rotated the other way so the motor's facing out and the blade is facing in. That's called an in rep. No matter which way you do it, you're always feeding against the rotation of the blade. This is different when you're cross-cutting. When you're cross-cutting, you're moving the saw with the rotation. When you're ripping, you're going against the rotation of the blade. So when you're out ripping, you're going to be feeding from that side through this way. When you're in ripping, you're going to be feeding from this side through that way. All right, so what you would want to do is figure out how wide you want to make your rip cut. And then you're going to measure the distance from the blade to the fence. And again, before you make any cuts, you're going to have to make kerfs in the tabletop. You don't ever want to start with the blade in a piece of material. So that's why you have to make kerfs. And we're just going to use this kerf I already have cut here.
Right.
So lower it down. And goes
forward, right? That kerf right there, right?
Yep. Go ahead. A little bit more. That's good right there. That's fine. And now we do need to lock this other lever so the blade can't go this way. Mm-hmm. And there is actually a guide on here for measuring. I wouldn't use that because I don't trust it to be accurate. I wouldn't use that with my table saw. I don't use the one on my table saw either. And this is the key to the whole thing. We need to set the blade guard. So you're gonna bring the workpiece up until it touches the back of the blade. And now come around to this side. Mm-hmm. You want to loosen that handle. Yep. Yep. And now rotate the blade guard. Now rotate the blade guard so that the tail of it is just barely above the material. Not a lot. Not touching, but that's good right there. And now crank that down nice and tight.
Is that good?
Yeah, as tight as you can make it by hand is fine. We do this because the blade is rotating in this direction. When the material first touches it, it wants to lift it up. Mm-hmm. So the toe end of the blade guard holds it down. Now we need to set the anti-kickback pawls. So you're going to move your workpiece up like that next to the blade. Mm-hmm. Now there is there's a wing nut right there. Loosen that wing nut.
Whoop.
And this is our spreader and our anti-kickback pawls. And you want this sitting so that the spreader is just kind of barely into the workpiece. You don't want it too far down. All right, now tighten that. Now, the way you test this is you make sure it moves freely this way, but it won't go back
Locks
that
the
way.
other way. Yeah.
So that stops it from kicking back. There's a potential, if the workpiece binds between the blade and the fence, that it could try and inject it back towards you. And that's what these stop. And the splitter is there to keep the two pieces of wood from pinching on the blade. Sometimes when you rip wood, especially when you rip wood, the wood will flex and sometimes come together to try and bind. And that's what this splitter is there to protect you from against. And you don't ever want to feed the wrong way through this. There's this persistent myth, and I don't know why people still believe this, because it's in the owner's manual how to do this. It is actually, in fact, printed right here on the blade guard how to do this. And I have had people insist that you feed it in that direction. And you can look at my YouTube shorts. I made a short video showing what happens when you feed it in the wrong direction. And it is violent. Now let's watch a piece that's being fed through the wrong way. So the way you're actually going to make the cut is you're going to start here with your hands. You're going to push it all the way in. You're going to start moving it through the cut. When it's far enough in that you can get this behind it, you use this, and you use this to push it all the rest of the way through the cut. Okay. So your hand never goes near the blade.
Sounds good.
All right, put your switch back in.
Fire up.
Do you have any questions before we start the cut?
No, push it that way, and then when I need to, put this behind it and keep pushing.
Yep, and then when the
through.
workpiece is all the way through, shut the saw off.
All right. Push it all the way through the blade. Like that.
All right, and that is it for rip cutting. Of course, you can still bevel this to do beveled rip cuts as well. But as you can see, and as you can see from some of my other videos, this is a perfectly safe way to cut. Your hands never get anywhere near the blade. You're using this push block the whole time. You're not standing directly behind the blade ever. You're always off to the side. So, and you've got the kickback pawls to arrest thing. You can also use feather boards if you want, as you can see in some of my other videos. It's perfectly safe. I don't know how it picked up the reputation of not being safe, but it is just as safe as using a table saw. So that is it for ripping, and we'll see you in the next video when we cover some basic joinery.